It's a routine trip carrying holidaymakers to visit family when tragedy strikes the Doña Paz. Petrified passengers risk their lives as they take the leap from the floating ball of flames. For some, it's a fatal decision either way. And it's not the first time the shipping company has faced an avoidable accident, nor will it be the last. As the Doña Paz sets off on the 20th of December 1987, everyone expects it to arrive at its destination. The Filipino-registered passenger ferry takes the journey from Tacloban to Manila twice a week. Though the sinking of the Doña Paz is believed to be the largest maritime disaster in times of peace, it is probably one of the least known tragedies to date. En route, the inter-island passenger ferry collided with a Filipino-owned oil tanker, the MT Vector, at Dumali Point, near the island of Marinduque. The oil tanker is on its way from Bataan to Masbate, carrying 1,041 tons of gasoline and petroleum products for Caltex Philippines. Sadly, neither the passenger ferry nor the oil tanker would ever reach their destination, and only 24 passengers from the ferry and 2 crew members from the oil tanker would live to tell the story of what happened that fateful evening. Since none of the Doña Paz crew survived, and the 2 crew members from the Vector were reportedly asleep at the time of the collision, only the accounts of the survivors can help us piece together what caused the tragedy. It is estimated that up to 16 million islanders travel between some 7,000 islands every year in the Philippines, making ferry travel the most economical mode for many locals. According to subsequent reports, overcrowding on passenger ferries is notorious in the country, but even more so on this occasion. Just 5 days before Christmas. On Sunday, 20 December, the Doña Paz was making its way to Manila, with many excited islanders hoping to meet up with family for the festive season. Witness accounts claim that the vessel, registered to carry just over 1,500 passengers, was reportedly leaning significantly more to one side when it left the port, indicating that it was heavily loaded. At 6:30 a.m., Doña Paz left the island of Leyte, setting sail for the overnight trip to Manila. According to the ship's initial manifest, the vessel carried 1,493 passengers and 59 crew members. In contrast, survivors say the ferry was jam-packed. One of the survivors, Ludia Bascal, who was traveling with her father Salvador, told a National Geographic film crew that the passengers were crammed into the ferry like cockroaches or ants. She said she saw 4 or more people sharing makeshift cots while hundreds tried to get comfortable on the floors of the 3-deck ferry. In the same documentary, another survivor, military officer Luzgardo Nido, says he and about 1,000 soldiers boarded at the last minute and were therefore not included on the ship's official manifest. It is also believed that about 1,000 children under the age of 4, as estimated by the survivors, were also left off the manifest. This meant that the estimated head count was double what it was said to be, with more than 3,000 people on board. At around 10 that evening, many passengers were trying to sleep as the ferry was due to dock in Manila at around 4:30 a.m., a mere 6 hours away. According to survivors, the evening was clear and the waters choppy as the Doña Paz made its way down the Tablas Strait. Aludia's father, Salvador Bascal, found himself on the top deck that evening and saw a ship's lights heading towards the ferry. He would soon realize that the boat was sailing way too close and realize that it was going to crash into their vessel. That ship was, of course, the 629-ton, steel-hulled MT Vector, carrying thousands of barrels of highly flammable fuel products, along with its crew of 13. Yet despite good visibility and calm sea conditions, the Vector rammed right into the port side of the Doña Paz, setting off an explosion that ripped through the engine room and main switchboard on the ferry. Survivors say the fire spread rapidly through the vessel, leaving multiple passengers trapped by the inferno, unable to reach the decks. It's believed the explosion led to a blackout on board, which caused a frantic stampede in overcrowded corridors as people tried to escape the flames and toxic fumes. According to reports, Hundreds of passengers who made it to the top deck near the ship's railings threw themselves overboard into notoriously shark-infested waters of the strait rather than risk dying in the flaming inferno on the ferry. But they did not know at the time that the explosive cargo caused a blast on the tanker, quickly turning the surrounding waters into a sea of fire. Nito, the military officer, was reportedly one of the first people to jump ship at the moment of impact. According to him, both vessels exploded a minute later, igniting the thick oil slick on the water. Aludia, who managed to jump overboard, quickly realized that the sea was on fire and resided in the fact that she would probably die there. Reports indicate that the flames on the water quickly grew miles wide around the vessels as the evening winds fanned the fire on. As passengers hurled themselves into the ocean, they discovered to their horror that the waters around the ships were littered with the burnt corpses of their fellow passengers. Aludia said she had a tough time staying afloat and soon realized that the water was heating up and started boiling the survivors alive. But just as she gave up the fight to stay alive, her father, Salvador, found her. Her skin peeled off as he grabbed her. The two said they swam for over an hour to escape the hot waters burning them. With little strength left to continue their fight for survival, the pair was scooped out of the waters by a cargo vessel, the Don Claudio, which rescued them and the rest of the survivors. According to maritime investigations and the missing people's reports, it's believed that more than 4,300 people were traveling on the ferry that evening. Tragically, only 24 passengers survived, along with 2 crew members from the oil tanker. Many had to receive emergency treatment for third-degree burns. Some survivors even spoke of seeing the skin falling and peeling from those around them. In 2012, it came to light that there were in fact 25 Doña Paz survivors when Valeriana Duma made it known via a television show called Wish Ko Long. Just 14 at the time, Duma was not accounted for by officials, making her the youngest survivor. It took less than 2 hours for the Doña Paz to meet her watery final resting place. Arnel Galang, 18 at the time, told reporters the ship was engulfed in flames and rotated twice before sinking slowly. The MT Vector went down 4 hours after the initial explosion. The Philippine maritime authorities reportedly only learned about the collision 8 hours after the incident. It would take the authorities yet another 8 hours to mount a coordinated search and rescue operation. Over the following days, only 207 bodies washed up on the shores of the Tablas Strait. Many believed that so few bodies were recovered due to the area being infamous for man-eating sharks. Maritime experts, however, believe it is more likely that passengers on the ferry died in the overcrowded lower decks, overcome by the flames and unable to find their way to the top decks. But how exactly did these two vessels collide? Reports based on witness accounts found that it was a clear evening, which meant that visibility was good. Both vessels had their lights on and were moving pretty slowly at the time, the Doña Paz at 16 miles per hour and the Vector at a mere 5 miles per hour. It's also believed that the ships were surrounded by more than 11.5 square miles of open seas, allowing enough room to avoid a collision. So what happened that night? According to a surviving crew member of the Vector, Second Officer Reynaldo Tarife, the vessel was understaffed. Neither he nor Captain Celso Abella had the necessary licenses. Captain Abella only had a second officer's license, while the chief and chief engineer were not licensed at all. On top of that, the Vector did not have a certificate of inspection, making the vessel unseaworthy at the time. The Board of Marine Inquiry, looking into the incident, found that 2 people were needed to steer the wheel of the tanker due to the ship's weight, which resulted in a zigzag motion toward the Doña Paz, which may have confused the crew. Still, with plenty of room to maneuver on the open seas, why didn't the Doña Paz move out of the way? Well, according to the signed affidavits of the survivors, the vessel's captain, Eusebio Nazareno, was allegedly watching a movie at the time of the collision. The other 2 senior officers were reportedly seen drinking beers. Military survivor Nito said he was chatting to a fellow soldier before the crash who told him there was a party at the bridge, which the captain was at. Nito added that the soldier surmised that it meant that an apprentice mate was probably steering the ship at the time. And why didn't the vessels radio each other? Based on investigations by the Board of Marine Inquiry, the Vector had an expired radio license, and the Doña Paz carried a fake one. So, who is to blame for this tragedy? The board found that the fatal incident was due to a series of safety malpractices on both vessels. The owners of the Vector were found liable as the ship was not seaworthy and operated without a license, a lookout, and a qualified captain. The board subsequently found against the Vector's operator and owner Francisco Sorian and the Vector Shipping Corporation, absolving the Doña Paz's owners, Sulpicio Lines, of any liability for the accident. But the Philippine Coast Guard investigations found that none of the Doña Paz's crew was stationed at their posts when the collision occurred, leaving only one apprentice to man the ship's bridge. The crew also gave no guidance regarding evacuation efforts on the ferry, which was exacerbated by the lack of life vests locked away on the deck's lockers. Attorneys representing the Vector's owners added that the Doña Paz had been refurbished in the early 1980s, adding 2 more decks to the vessel to allow more passengers. However, the ship's certificate of stability was issued in 1980 based on 2, not the 4 decks it had when it went down. This meant that the Doña Paz was actually not seaworthy at the time of the collision, as the stability certificate which was issued would not take into account the extra 2 decks. The stability certificate essentially regulates that the ship has the ability to return to an even keel if there is any inclination caused by outside factors, like strong winds or waves when a ship turns. We know by way of witness accounts that the ship was already listing to one side due to overcrowding, which could have affected the ship's ability to steer out of the way of the approaching oil tanker. It appears, however, that tragedy and heartache was to follow Sulpicio Lines. The owner of the company has been involved in 4 shipping accidents that claimed the lives of around 5,000 people over a period of 11 years. The last incident in 2008 saw the Princess of the Star go down near Sibuyan Island, killing around 800 people. A memorial honoring the victims of the tragedy was held in a park in Catbalogan, the ship's last stopover before it set sail on that fateful trip. The memorial site at Pieta, which means pity in Italian, allows family and friends of the victims a space to honor their lives in the absence of burial sites, as many bodies were not recovered. Sulpicio Lines has since changed its name and operates under Philippine Span Asia Carrier Corporation, limited now to only carrying cargo. Watch this episode next if you found this video interesting. Please add a like and leave a comment if you want to support the channel.